what's the point of all of the different protocols? And you mentioned kind of categories
Yep.
and investing in like sectors. And it sounds like
Mhm.
you implied in that is that you envision different protocols kind of serving different purposes and things like that. Um, I know that, like a Solana or an Avalanche or whatever, a lot of the reasons why they've gotten adoption has to do with, the transaction, the expenses related to transacting on the Ethereum blockchain, because it got expensive to do gas or whatever, and they're much cheaper. But how do you think about that landscape? Fast forward 5 years, 10 years. I know a bunch of them will fail, but the ones that succeed, like, what are some of the use cases, I guess, that require a different protocol for this purpose versus a different protocol for this purpose? How do you think about like the sectors, I guess, that each need their own
Yep.
protocol?
Yeah. So what I would say is there's really two approaches that I think are being pursued in parallel, and maybe they will succeed and maybe they won't succeed. One is what I call a general purpose blockchain. Ethereum is a general purpose blockchain. All sorts of stuff runs on it. Try and do it at the same time. Solana is also a general purpose blockchain. The opposite approach is something called the application specific blockchain. Instead of sharing in the limiting factor, which is really called block space, we can get into that detail if you want or not, but like if you're either going to be sharing block space with the rest of the world, or you're going to have your own chain, which is just dedicated to you. Yeah. So, Solana, Ethereum, these are examples of general purpose blockchains where many transactions from all sorts of different applications are being jammed into blocks together. And the limiting factor is block space. And so that's what you're paying for. You're paying for inclusion in a block. And so the other approach, which is application specific, there's a few different approaches to this. There's a few ecosystems. One is called the Cosmos ecosystem. Another one's called Polkadot. The idea here is, hey, instead of trying to have everyone go into one super fast general purpose blockchain, what if this looked actually more like the design of the internet, where everyone has their own little space? And so, to try to draw an analogy, when I stand up a website, I have my own server, and my server connects to the internet. You can think of each of these new blockchains on Cosmos as their own little server, right? The implementation is different. It's a decentralized blockchain, but they all connect to each other, and they sort of communicate. And so whatever I'm doing on my own chain is just for me. And then when I want to talk to you, I make a transaction across the chain. So these are the two sort of competing approaches, which is general purpose blockchains and application specific blockchains. I don't know if one will win. I think they'll both, kind of keep succeeding in parallel, but this is one of the great experiments going on right now. And so where last year proved that people care about cheap transactions that happen fast, and that's why you see the proliferation of Solana. Polygon is another one on top of Ethereum. But I think this year and going into next year, we'll really see Cosmos ecosystem, and then maybe later Polkadot ecosystem with this application specific approach.
So when you say application specific, like what is does that mean that Cosmos and Polkadot, they have a specific use case where it's appropriate to build on their protocol, or is it more And what are those use? Just as an example, what are those use cases?
A simple example. Simple example is on Ethereum. There's a popular decentralized exchange called Uniswap. Uniswap implements this idea of an automated market maker. Basically, you can trade without having to go to a centralized exchange like Coinbase. Uniswap exists within Ethereum. There's a ton of other dApps running on Ethereum. In Cosmos, there is a similar type of application, a decentralized exchange. It's called Osmosis, and it's its own blockchain. If you want to transact on Osmosis, they have their own blockchain. They have their own group of, I think, 100 validators, which are doing just that. If you want to transfer your token to it, you transfer your token into this place, you do your trading, and then you transfer it back out to wherever you want to use it. So that is just a very different approach. And so, bridging all these different chains together, that's another really hot topic at the end of last year and this year, which is, if you believe in this sort of multi-chain future, then interoperability is super important. Bridging is super important. And just kind of share how I sort of think about this. Like, my view on this is that the demand for block space is infinite, in the same way that the demand for hard drive space is infinite. And the more that you make something cheap and easy to consume, the more people actually use it. And so as hard drives got faster, like I remember when I installed the first 1 gigabyte drive in our home PC, and I remember my friend's dad said, "What are you going to do with 1 gigabyte of space?" Like, it was unfathomable they could ever use a gig for anything. But as it got cheaper, of course, we use more and more of it. And so my view is the demand for block space is infinite, the same as the demand for hard drive space is infinite. And therefore, we need to have a lot of different approaches. Solana can't win because there has to be many, many approaches. And so that sort of leads you to, if there's going to be more than one blockchain, you have to figure out how to connect them together. That's a little bit how I think about it.
Got it.